We are the National Disability and Carers Card Scheme, and we're interviewing interesting people about their lived experiences of disability and caregiving. So let's jump in. So welcome Holly, also known as Stomababe on TikTok and Instagram. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you. So tell us a bit about your journey to becoming the Stomababe, as you are known.
It's so funny when people just say the Instagram, TikTok username handle, because I mean, if you'd have told me 10 years ago that that's what I would be using on social media, I'd be like, what do you mean? Because obviously, it's something that nobody thought would happen to them. Well, I certainly never thought it would happen to me, that I would have a stoma bag and then be known as Stomababe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty wild to me. But I mean, it all just really began from when I was unwell and I was in hospital for a long period of time back in 2021. So coming up to 4 years now. But I was in hospital, and basically because I was in a lot of pain, really unwell, had a lot of wires and everything, I couldn't really watch TV or walk around or do anything. So I ended up just basically kind of typing on my phone, making stories on Instagram about what was going on with me at that time. And at that point I had maybe a couple of hundred followers, just my friends and family. But I was sharing stuff onto my story, and then people that knew me, I think, were obviously, sharing on my stories to other people or people they knew who'd been through similar, to try and get their advice towards me about what I was going through. And then, I don't know, kind of in that period of time in the hospital that I was there 8 weeks, the viewers kind of kept growing on my stories. More people kept were following my page and then sending me messages about, living with colitis, having a stoma bag and all that stuff. And then I just was like, oh, this is really insightful and really helpful, because I didn't really know what was going on with me or what to expect. And then after I came out of the hospital, I kind of just carried on, posting really and sharing my journey, because I thought, well, this actually might be able to help other people, because people have helped me, so now I can help other people as well. So that's kind of how it all
Amazing. The timing is really interesting, because you were obviously in hospital kind of suffering at the time, and then you had all of these, supportive people kind of behind you on the journey, which is, must have been interesting timing.
No, it was just really needed at that moment in time, because I was in a very low place and I had no idea what I was gonna, go through at that point in time. And, bowel diseases and things that involve the toilet are not so openly spoke about, particularly on mainstream television or in the movies or anything like that. So there's such little actual real life information. Obviously you can go onto the NHS website or Wikipedia or whatever and get a definition of these things, but actually lived experience is very hard to come by. So having people sending me messages and telling me about their experiences was so comforting and reassuring, because I was terrified, because I was in a completely, wild situation that I never imagined myself in, because I'd only been diagnosed with ulcerative colitis a year prior to being in the hospital and being told that I needed to have this life-changing operation. So I hadn't had time to even research what a stoma bag was. I didn't know anything about it at all. I thought that, naively, a stoma bag's just something that old people have, or just something that's really, really, the worst case, right? That's how I think still quite a few people might see it, as the worst case. I think some people see it it's so horrendous, that you think your life is over. I thought my life was over. And thank goodness for the kind-hearted souls that messaged me to tell me otherwise, and that I followed and saw the stuff that they were doing with their lives, working and exercising and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, so for some of the backstory, so you said it had been only a year between being diagnosed and then having to have. Had you had lots of symptoms before? Was it a slow timing to get the diagnosis, or what was the health journey, I guess?
It's quite interesting, really, and I think that this probably might resonate for a few people who have been through similar. But for me, I'd had symptoms, not necessarily in the way that they were when I got diagnosed, but I'd had I'd had underlying issues with my stomach, I'd say for probably, I'm not sure, like maybe I got diagnosed in I'd say about a couple of years before getting diagnosed, I started to notice that things were off with my stomach. Nothing crazy or dramatic, but you know, I was having stomach pains quite regularly, especially when I'd have meals. I always would feel really uncomfortable or just like in pain. I'd get really bad constipation. And yeah, I just I didn't feel good when I was eating, basically, which isn't, you know, the best feeling in the world. But like many people who go on to be diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease, I went to the doctors and was told, you know, it's IBS, it's piles, it's this. The common things that most people, especially young people, get told when they go to see the GP.
Right.
Because to get diagnosed with something like Crohn's or colitis, you need to have a colonoscopy. So you need to be referred.
Yeah.
And there can be like long waiting times, or just like a lot of the time GPs just won't refer you for that. So you really do kind of have to advocate for yourself if you do think that there's something else going on. And to be fair, like I did get referred for colonoscopies at that point, but nothing was showing up when I was going for them. So in fairness to them, like there was nothing there. So I was told, like, you know, maybe you've just got like a sensitive stomach, but I didn't feel great. But, you know, I carried on. And then it was when I started a new job and I started working late shifts that I felt that everything kind of escalated. Maybe it was like the change in my schedule, my sleep pattern kind of escalated things, I think.
Yeah.
And that's when the symptoms got worse. And that's when, you know, I really was like, there's something bad happening here. That's when I noticed I was going to the loo and seeing blood and stuff like that, and like really bad urgency. And I have a younger brother who was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, so I already knew quite a lot about inflammatory bowel disease. So when I started to see like blood and stuff, I knew that, you know, this wasn't like IBS sensitive stomach, this was something more severe than that. And I then went to have another colonoscopy, and that's when that got diagnosed, basically. So I feel like it had been bubbling under the surface for a couple of years. But, you know, with colonoscopies, they don't always diagnose people straight away, because to get diagnosed, basically, you have to have the active flare, really. Do you know what I mean? Like, it has to be flaring to be able to be seen on the camera. So if someone has a colonoscopy and it comes back clear, it doesn't always necessarily mean there's nothing wrong. It just means that at that point in time, there's nothing that they can see. It doesn't mean it's not there. That's what's so tricky about these types of diseases, and getting a diagnosis is really hard.
Yeah, it is. It does seem like it could have escalated like very quickly, really.
Yes.
And that must have been, how was that to cope with emotionally?
Well, you know, this is the thing as well, is because obviously when I did get diagnosed properly with ulcerative colitis, I was told that it was very, very mild, like that I wasn't going to need to be on any strong treatments, that, you know, certainly never going to go down the surgical road. I was all going to be hunky-dory, basically, like, you know. So in my mind, I just thought, okay, well, you know, this is what the gastroenterologist is saying, and they know more than me. And I carried on kind of taking the medicine that they gave me, which was just like a first line treatment, and it never worked from day one when I was taking it. And I obviously kept saying that and responding, saying like, you know, it's not controlling anything. But because it was also it's like kind of that weird transition of COVID, post-COVID. So they weren't really particularly fond on seeing people in person. So it was a lot of just emails back and forth, being like, just carry on taking the meds, carry on taking the meds. And I just did keep carrying on taking the meds, but they just would never get it under control. And I think, you know, the longer you leave something like ulcerative colitis uncontrolled, it just kind of like almost like a fire. It just keeps spreading and spreading and spreading until the whole forest is alight. And unfortunately, by the time you've got it to that place, there's no way of putting the fire out. And that's kind of what was going on with me. But obviously, because nobody was looking at me and seeing what was going on in here, that's how it got like so out of control. And that's the thing, it can get out of control so quickly. And I didn't know that. So I'm just thinking like, oh, well, I'm just bleeding, and loads of other people that have IBD have these symptoms every day and they're doing all right. So maybe I just have to accept that this is my life now. So yeah,
Yeah.
because you know there's only so many times you can email people or go to A&E, and I was doing all of those things, and everybody was just telling me like, you know, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. But actually, you know, now when I look back on it, I'm like, you know, if just one person had taken me a bit more seriously or listened to what I was saying, maybe I wouldn't be where I am today. But then I wouldn't change where I am today. Now I know what I know now. So yeah, I guess everything kind of does actually happen for a reason.
And it came to the point where you were having the emergency, stay in hospital, started your kind of sharing about it online, and then you did end up having the Stomababe surgery, and you were saying that for a lot of people that's considered like a worst case outcome.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how do you feel about that now?
Like I say, like, yeah, I think obviously prior to living with one, that's what I thought, that it was the worst case. But actually, you know, now I've actually got the Stomababe and I live with the Stomababe, and I've been through the active ulcerative colitis flares. I know it's not the worst case. The worst case is having uncontrolled IBD, because that impacts every part of your life. You can't do anything without being in immense pain. It's so horrible. There's no way else to describe it. Like, it takes over everything. You can't go to work, you can't see your friends, you can't celebrate and enjoy all of the occasions. You know, I remember I went to a hen do that was like camping, and it was my friend's hen do, and everybody was having such a great time, and the whole time I was just laying there in a tent in so much pain, just wishing that I could just sink into the floor almost, and I couldn't enjoy anything that anybody else was doing. So I was there, yeah, but I wasn't present, I wasn't enjoying it, it wasn't fun, and I just wanted to go home. And that was just like a really horrible feeling, because I was thinking to myself, like, is this going to be the rest of my life? Am I always going to just be in pain and unable to enjoy things like this? So, you know, whereas now with my bag, I have to make sort of adjustments for it, but I don't go to events and sit there, you know, like writhing in pain, or having to like fall asleep in a corner because I'm so fatigued and tired. You know, I was going to events and I was just I remember there was an event I went to, like a wedding reception. I fell asleep in the corner on a chair because my body was so fatigued I couldn't stay awake. I was just falling asleep everywhere. You know, and it's just really at that, when I was going through it when I was like 26, it was really scary to feel like that. You felt really vulnerable and like, yeah, it was just really, really awful. So no, the Stomababe is definitely not the worst case at all by any means.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think hopefully that's helpful for a lot of people to hear who might be thinking about it or considering their options medically. What are some, I guess, surprising aspects of having a hidden disability which isn't visible to everyone?
I mean, just obviously, like, I think the fluctuations, I think that's what people don't necessarily understand unless they've ever lived with a hidden disability or they know someone with a hidden disability, is how much it can fluctuate. You can literally have one day where you feel completely fine and you're like able to do everything that you need to do, but then very quickly things change and the next day you can be absolutely out of action and it's not possible that you can do anything. And that's the same with literally any type of illness, whether it's physical or mental or anything like that. There's these just quick fluctuations that are very hard to describe to people, because, you know, most of the time people will see you on the good days. They will see you when you've got like the symptoms under control and you're able to be present. They won't see you when you're at your lowest. They won't see you when like you can't do anything, right? So then when you're describing that to people, they kind of look at you a bit strange and look at you a bit like, really? Like, you know, are you making this up? Like, you know what I mean? They can't fathom that, because unless you've actually lived with it or you know somebody that lives with it, it's really hard to understand fully. But that's what I think is so challenging, because, you know, people expect disability to be very visible. They expect to be able to see it, or like almost like see it immediately and say you're disabled. And they expect it to always be, you know, stable in terms of like nothing ever changes. You know, like for instance, we know that there are people who are they don't always need to use a wheelchair, right? But the minute that somebody is like getting out of their wheelchair, people are like, oh look, you're lying, it's not, look, you can stand up. It's like, well, not everybody has to use a wheelchair full time. There's different conditions as to why that's the case, but people just can't seem to wrap their mind around how that can be the case. And that's what's so challenging, because there's just so many misconceptions and stereotypes about disability, like how it looks, how it acts, what it does, what it says, how it moves, everything. Like, you know, it's really frustrating sometimes to have to keep explaining and trying to almost like justify yourself when you live with these awful conditions that are horrible and really, like, you know, not pleasant and not something that you would wish to have. But people think that you're almost like lying or you're making it up. Like, why would you want to do that? There's no benefit in it for really anybody. Like, you know, for myself, I can say personally, like, I don't get anything special because I am living with these conditions. I still have to work and do all the things that everybody else does, but I have to overcome all of this extra stuff to do it. And it's very tiring, it's really draining. So the only thing that, you know, myself and others ask for is just like the tiniest bit of like compassion, and just to be just understanding. Like, you don't have to, you know, change everything for us, but just to make us feel like we're included, and to, you know, give us at least a chance to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah, completely. I think, so you mentioned the workplace, so we'll come back to that in a minute, but I wanted to also go back to how you have found the online community. So you started sharing about it, lots of people obviously related and were then sharing it with others. So how have you found the online community for, you know, how have you found it helpful?
Yeah. So obviously, of course, just being able to relate to other people's stories and to see others in a similar position to me has been so helpful, because it's meant that I don't feel alone, I don't feel isolated, I don't feel strange. Like, I feel kind of, just like less alone. But obviously, you know, like with anything, there's always challenges. There's challenges online, challenges in life, and navigating those has definitely been very like eye-opening. And I know, you know, that a lot of people will be sharing stuff online and face those challenges as well. And that's why it's really important that those things are talked about as well, because you sometimes can get, you know, mean comments or people making assumptions about you, you know, like I was saying, because obviously I have a hidden disability. Sometimes people can, you know, comment some not so nice things. So that's been a whole learning process as well, and that's something that I never have had to think about before, because before this I was just sharing to, like, you know, a few close people, and now obviously there's more people, and sometimes I forget that, like, I forget like there's actually quite a few people seeing this stuff, and not necessarily everybody will have had those experiences that I've had. They might not understand. So then if they say something that's not very pleasant, I have to understand that that's not like necessarily a personal thing. It just might be that they don't get my experience. They haven't been through anything like that. They don't know anyone that's been through that. So I just try to make sure that with the videos that I put out, there's always like an educational aspect, because that's really all that I can kind of do, because I want to obviously raise awareness of these topics and help other people not feel alone, but also as well, like, just show the multifaceted nature of hidden disabilities, because like I said, they fluctuate. So yeah, some days I look fine and then other days I'm not fine. So that's why I kind of always try to show both the highs and the lows, because that's what it's like. There's dips and, you know, there's like peaks all the time.
So you do see some of those kind of assumptions and misconceptions through people's comments, but at the same time it's been a source of learning for you, and then I'm sure your platform is also helping a lot of other people learn too. So it's great that you're on there and sharing what you are. If you're enjoying listening to this interview, make sure to like this video, follow and subscribe, and hit the bell notification to get notified each time we make a new video. You can also head over to our websites, where we have a whole range of helpful articles on living with a disability or being a carer. And for more bite-sized videos, follow us on Instagram or on TikTok. Okay, back to the interview. How do you deal with those days when maybe people are less understanding, or even days when you're having a low day with, you know, with managing the condition?
I think that's really important to talk about, because some days it's really hard, you know, to get yourself out of a difficult spot when you're struggling with whatever it is that you're living with, especially if you've got multiple conditions going on. It can be so difficult to, you know, see kind of the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I know when I was in the hospital, for instance, for those like that, how long was it? Like 8 weeks I was in there. I remember it was so hard to think like things are going to get better, that I'm going to get out of here and that life is going to go on. It felt like, you know, there was no positivity anywhere to be found. And that's why, in a way, again, with the social media stuff, I was making sure that during that time I was trying to look at the accounts that made me feel positive, that made me feel like there was hope. Because they are there. There is negativity on social media, but there is a lot of positive as well if you look for it, if you like seek it out. So now I do find myself like, you know, trying to connect with accounts that do uplift me, that do make me feel positive and give me hope. Because there are some fantastic people out there creating amazing content that, you know, is even more informative than stuff you would get from like a psychiatrist or the doctors. I've learned so much about myself through social media than I have through anything else, maybe even like education in school, you know, because when we're at school, most of it's just learning history, English, maths, but we don't learn about our psychology, we don't learn about ourselves, we don't learn about how our minds work, and everybody's mind works differently, but we aren't often taught that. So we can often then feel like, you know, out of place if we don't see ourselves reflected in others. And that's where I think social media is great, because it's got so many different people with different lives and different brains sharing. And then you feel like, oh, look, there is somebody who's literally just expressed what I've been trying to express for years, but I didn't know how to say it. But that person's literally just put it there. So now I feel like I'm not like, you know, an outsider. I feel like I'm actually seen, and yeah, I'm just not alone. This is just like, this is great.
Yeah, so a good place to connect, definitely.
Yeah, I just think that's, yeah, definitely the best place to be. You know, just stop, don't follow, basically don't look at things that make you feel worse.
Yes.
If you're in a bad headspace, or things that are going to make you feel like less than.
Yeah.
Try and connect with people that make you feel like better, or that relate to your journey.
Definitely. You've, I guess, on a similar note, so you've recently been sharing also about ADHD and autism, and it would be great to hear a little bit about your journey with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is another thing, like, you know, obviously after going through the whole journey with colitis and the Stomababe stuff, and actually I think this happens for a few people, they get physically unwell with certain symptoms that, you know, force them to get seen and treated and medicated. But then after that, once they've kind of got all of those physical things sort of under control, they realise actually, you know, there's still something that I'm feeling, or there's still something not quite right, and they're not sure what that is. And as time goes on, they start to realise that actually I've got all the physical stuff now under control, but actually up here isn't like okay. I don't feel okay up here. So it could be that, you know, people feel like PTSD from medical appointments, depression, anxiety, I mean, all of those things, right? Which is something that I've always had. But I've always felt that even though I've seen people and talked about my depression, anxiety, that nothing's ever got better in that aspect, no matter what I've tried. So I kind of was at a place where I just thought like, well, maybe that's just like me. Maybe I'm just like this kind of outsider person, this bad person or whatever, because I don't feel like other people and I don't relate how other people relate. And then I guess, like I said, through social media, I started to kind of see accounts talking about women living with ADHD, and it was like somebody was putting like holding a mirror up to me, and I was finally like seeing myself in the mirror and actually recognizing who I am. And it was so bizarre, because I was like, how can this be? For all of these years that I've thought that I'm just like a bad person, but actually it's that there's been this condition that I've been living with that obviously I've not known about, and the world is not designed for people like me. Like, it's designed for neurotypical people. So of course I've always felt like I don't fit in, and I've always felt like I don't quite understand the instructions, because the instructions are not made to be read by somebody. Like, they're made for neurotypical people, and the traits that a lot of neurodiverse people like myself have are seen as being like, you know, bad in a way, but they're not. They're just completely different. So for instance, you know, like, we are very creative individuals, but oftentimes that creativity can be seen as like, you're not like listening to the rules, or you're trying to like, you know, do your own thing and you're not doing as you're told. But in a way, it's just because you're thinking outside of the box, because your brain is thinking completely differently to how other people's is. It's structured differently. So that's what's been hard, is to actually have to relearn myself that I'm not a bad person, that my brain is different, and that is completely okay. And then, you know, once I got my diagnosis for that and I started medication for my ADHD, you know, it was really just like, wow, you know, it's like a massive light bulb switch on moment that, you know, that this was actually something that was very real, that was living, that I am. And just like having to then have to go back and actually just like kind of apologise to the young version of myself and be like, I'm really sorry for being so mean to you for all those years and being so nasty, because when you live with, you know, things like autism and ADHD, you can be so cruel to yourself, like internally, like you literally bully yourself every day. And it's just because your brain's like, you know, is constantly wearing away. But it makes you feel really like sad, obviously. And I felt really sad knowing how mean I've been to my former self, like, you know, so I kind of had to be like, I'm really sorry, but actually it's okay. Like, you know, now we're going forward and you know kind of what's happening now. So now I'm kind of working on like coping strategies, and also just talking about it feels really, really good, because I feel like I always knew something was happening, but I was afraid to talk about it and I didn't know what to say. And there was obviously, like with IBD, there's like quite a bit of stigma about anything to do with, you know, autism, ADHD. It feels like there's a stigma about that stuff as well. But I'm finally at a place where I don't feel like embarrassed to say it. Like I can say that's what I am, and it's not bad at all. It's actually, you know, I'm not going to say the cliche is a superpower, because I don't feel personally it is a superpower for me personally. Some people might, I don't. But I feel that it's literally, it's okay to talk about it. And you know, it's something that's like happening for so many other people out there, and it's really important we talk about it, because you'll definitely know somebody living with those conditions. And it's great to learn and understand how their mind works. You know, and if we don't talk about it, then how will we ever understand that?
And share the coping strategies as well.
Exactly, because this is the thing, like even now with like people I've known for years and years, I'm having to kind of break down how I am, why I am, and how, you know, my reactions might not be the expected reactions of somebody in certain situations, and why those reactions are those reactions. Because, you know, if you've not had experience with that sort of stuff, you might find it a bit strange, right? Like that if someone's, you know, you've told somebody that they've got to go somewhere at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, on the day they need to go somewhere at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but that person has like a massive breakdown because they didn't know they were going somewhere at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You might be like, why are you so upset? You're just going somewhere at 1. But like for somebody like myself who has structure and routine, that sudden change is massive to us, you know, and it can feel really overwhelming. So, you know, it's just kind of explaining why somebody might have that reaction. And it's just because they, you know, for a lot of people like myself, we rely on routine. And when that routine gets changed or altered, it's like we don't have the executive function to be able to process that. It takes time. And that can feel really like, you know, unnerving. But yeah, and obviously, of course, people like myself who are more high functioning, we've learned for years to mask it and to, you know, again, appear like nothing is going on up here. And so you'll see us and you'll be like, oh, well, she's not autistic because she's got a child and a job and a thing. But that's, you know, people that are autistic can have jobs and have kids and, you know, and succeed in life. It just takes sometimes a lot of masking to do that. And it's okay actually sometimes to just peel off the mask when you want to and be your true self. You don't have to always mask, but it does feel obviously, you know, that a lot of the time it's just easier to do that, to fit in with everybody else.
And as you said, with colitis, you can have good days and bad days as well, and you don't show everyone the bad days.
And this is the thing, yeah, like, you know, I think people will always see me online and see that and think like, you know, she copes really well, she's, you know, doing TikTok, Instagram, like, you know, she can't really struggle that much. But, you know, like I said, they see the sort of, you know, that when I film a TikTok, I've mentally prepared for that the day before. They won't see all the prep that goes into that to have that, like, not the facade, but like to have that, like, come across in a certain way, I guess. They don't see like me when I'm at home, or like when I'm having a really low time, like emotionally, and what that's actually like. Because I think maybe then they would see like, oh, actually there are struggles. But a lot of people just don't feel very comfortable of course sharing that with the whole wide world, because it can make you feel very, very vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's brave to share that when you have lots of followers, and when you know that there can be some pushback, I guess, from some of them with the nasty stuff. So yeah, it takes a lot of courage.
I just think it's really important because, I think sometimes for myself, I know when I go on social media and I see people and they all look so well put together, they're so polished, and their life, even if their life is like, they're not like a Kardashian or whatever, they're just a regular everyday person, can still look so put together and so like they've got their emotions in check and everything like that. And for somebody like myself, I will watch that and be like, oh, I wish I was like, I wish I could like emotionally, keep it all together and balance all these things. So I just want people to know, actually, that's not always the case just because you're seeing that online. Like might see me and think that I've got it all together, and that's honestly just not the actual case. Like genuinely, there are days where I'll cry loads, or like I will find it really hard to get dressed and all of that kind of stuff. And I want people to realize that's actually okay. It's not bad if that happens to you, and it's not shameful. It's part of life, especially when you're living with conditions like ADHD and autism, that you feel like that. It's not shameful. It shouldn't be shameful. And if we actually talked about it more, then I think the world would be such a nicer place for people like myself to live in.
Yeah, absolutely. What time are we on recording?
Yeah, how long are we on?
Just at half an hour.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've got more time. So we could go back to talking about the workplace a little bit again.
Yeah, sure.
We can keep it non-specific. When it comes to working and sort of taking some of these challenges, what are some things that you've been able to do to kind of manage it at work?
Yeah, I think being honest, I mean, naturally, because I do have because I do live with ADHD and autism, I do find it easy to be honest with people that I know, or if I'm like on a camera and I'm like removed from people. But I find it hard to articulate myself when I'm around people that, like face-to-face people that like necessarily I don't know. And definitely, in a workplace environment, usually you're going to be talking to people who are maybe more senior than you, that it can feel intimidating. So that's when it can feel really difficult to express yourself and to get across kind of what you want to say. It's something I've struggled with so much in all of my life, because there's things I've always want to say, but I don't know how to say them perhaps in the best way. So I think, what I found actually was being honest, of course, but kind of like doing it in a way that, if you, for instance, like I said, I struggle if I'm with somebody and it's face to face and I don't know them necessarily that well. So instead of that, I would email instead, because I found that easier, because I could prepare an email, I could think about it and put it down in a good way. So find what works for you in terms of, speaking to your employers. If it's not face to face, maybe you could do an email or something like that, and find the relevant people to speak to. Definitely HR are the best port of call. So, I sent some emails with the HR at my company and spoke about my conditions, what I was living with. I got referred to speak to occupational health. Some companies do have occupational health, not everybody does, but some businesses do. And they're really helpful because you can tell them all about your medical conditions, and they kind of like will put together a report of the kind of accommodations that you might need for your conditions. And that's so helpful, because it just takes that weight off, that stress of feeling like, oh my gosh, like, how do I talk about this, or articulate it. They kind of do that for you. So, but if you don't have something like that, then you can still obviously, of course, put down some bullet points in an email to send across. But I think just opening up about what you're going through, it really does like help so much. And also, you can't be discriminated against in a workplace, because there are things in place for that, to stop that happening. So you can't, I know some people feel like I can't say this because of, what if this happens or that happens, but like, you are entitled to, if you have a disability, ask for reasonable adjustments in your workplace. And to, you know, because like it's better to be staying in work than not being in work. And there are sometimes just small little changes you can make that can make such a big difference to your life, whether it's just like having a different seat to sit in, or, you know, that you want to be nearer a toilet, or there's like little things like that are just like not massive, and they can make a big difference to your working life. You know, just being open and having good communication really is massive. But I understand, obviously, especially like I said, with communication, it can be difficult because not everybody can articulate in the way that they want to, or they struggle with that. So, you know, there are different modes of communication you can try. If you don't want to sit down face to face with, like, you know, your manager or whatever and say it.
Yeah.
That's how I found anyway.
Yeah. And as you said, HR, if depending on what workplace you're in, if they're big enough, they have a HR, you can sidestep sometimes, or you can go to the people that you're comfortable talking to.
Exactly, and I think as well, some places do also have like helplines, like work office helplines that you can also call as well, that give like advice on like mental health and all that kind of stuff as well, because obviously, you know, those are big topics now, especially, you know, life is really manic, and people, especially if you've got health conditions going on as well, it can feel really overwhelming when you're balancing all of that. I know when I was really, really sick, I found it so hard to balance like looking after my health, but also, you know, working still and everything else that's going on. So, you know, if any of your like offices have like a helpline or somebody you can call and speak to like anonymously, that's really helpful as well.
Yeah, amazing. It's great advice, and I hope it helps demystify for people watching who might be worried about it.
Well, I spoke about the toilets. So in where I am, there's only one disabled toilet, and it was frequently being used, which was causing me a bit of anxiety. And again, because I'm not good with the face-to-face thing, I didn't want to sit down and talk about it face-to-face. So again, I just sent an email round to somebody who I think it was someone in HR who I felt might be able to help. And I was really worried and nervous about what they were going to say, but they were really, really helpful, really kind. And they went out of their way to help me, and they put a sign on the door that spoke about invisible disabilities, and I shared that. And then somebody else messaged me saying like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Like, I didn't know you could talk about that, or like, you know, ask. And you know, this is the thing, if you do not ask, then you don't know exactly what can be done. You know, it's better to definitely say something than to just sit suffering in silence, because, you know, it's a long day, and if you need the loo particularly, you know, you need the loo. So it's really important that you're able to get to the loo.
And it can end up with a positive change. So
and I was really happy about that, and I thought, like, you know, like, this is the thing, you know, and then if one place does it, and then another person asks, and then it all trickles down, and it gets to help, you know, so many other people, because it only takes like one place to change something for it to make quite a big difference in the workforce. And I think, like, this is why, you know, spaces like this podcast are really important, because you know, before the modern like digital era, we didn't have, like, people with disabilities and illnesses didn't have spaces like this to talk and to share actually what it's like to live with. You know, even when I talk to my mum and I'm telling her about disabled toilets and how I find them hard because they don't have a shelf, she's like, oh, I never would have thought about that before. And I never would have thought about that before until I'm actually now living with it and speaking about it. So, you know, this is the thing, unless we talk about this, how does anything ever change? It doesn't.
Yeah, it's great. And yeah, it's exactly why we're doing the podcast. We want to share those stories and get them out there a bit more. So yeah, we're really grateful. I wanted to maybe just wrap up with some questions about the National Disability Card, because you're a card holder.
I am.
So tell us about how you first heard about us. How long has it been since you've had your card?
Well, I have... it's quite funny, really, because actually I didn't know about you guys, but it was actually my mum who, she does a lot of my personal, even at my great age of 32, my mum still does a lot for me in terms of my admin, because anybody listening knows living with ADHD, autism, organisation is really difficult, and the thing I struggle with the most is admin. For some reason, if you give me a form, I just step, like, I can't even like find the strength to put my name at the top. Like, I find it so unbearably hard. So because of this, my mum's learnt over the years that basically if she doesn't do stuff for me, it won't happen. So my mum was saying to me, like, you know, because I think I was going abroad, that I needed to get something for the airport so that, you know, if I needed to get to the toilet, I could. And I was like, yeah, I'll have a look into it. And she took that as, that's not ever going to happen if I don't do it. Okay. So she found you guys and signed me up for one. And then she gave it to me. And I remember getting it. I didn't really know what it was about. I didn't know anything. But she gave it to me. And I said, obviously, thank you. And then I was at the airport. Where are we going? Where are we going to Miami? I think we're going to Miami, actually. And we got to the other side, the immigration at Miami, and the line was like insane, like hours long. And because I've been on the flight, and I'd come off, my bag was quite full, and I was thinking to myself, I couldn't see toilets anywhere at this point in the immigration hall. So I was like, oh my god, if they make me stand in that queue for like 2 hours, we're gonna have a situation. So I was panicking. My partner said to me, well, why don't you see if you can go and speak to somebody and see if there's a way that you could, you know, there's like an accessible line or somewhere you can go. So I was like, okay. So I went up to this lady that was working there, and I showed her the card, and I said, oh, I've got this like card, and literally I didn't even go into anything. She just went, yep, come through. And I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. Like, you know, she didn't ask me about my medical condition, she just saw the card and she knew what it was, and I just went through, and then I went to the toilet. And so that's when I was like, oh, this is really great, like this is amazing. And then I followed you all on Instagram, saw all your great videos, and then I learned as well, obviously, that aside from just using it on travel and stuff, there's also, you know, other things that you can use it for, days out, discounts, all kinds. And that's when I was like, oh, what a smart idea, this is amazing. And because I'd never heard of it, I was like, I bet there's quite a few others who might not have heard of it, and I feel like this is something that people need to know about. And that's when I started to kind of create videos talking about it as well, because I was like, no, this is really handy. And I say it to people all the time now, anyone family, like anyone with a disability, I always say, like, have you got one? Like, you need to get it. It's so useful. Like, it's worth its weight in gold. It's really, really, really good.
Oh, we love to hear those stories. And lots of people say similar things about the airport or kind of other transport hubs, just being able to show the card and get, you know, communicate quickly, basically, with someone else, including in another country.
I think as well, because it's got like your photo on the front, it's got like a number, it's very official looking. It's not just like, you know, you've just like randomly printed off something. You know, people will like look at it and they will be more likely to understand than say if you showed anything else. Do you know what I mean? Like, they'll be able to see that it's also yours, that you haven't just like got it from somewhere, and that's what I really like about it. Yeah,
you can check the face and
all of that.
A serious design. It's got all these security features.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Yeah,
that's great. Do you have any other stories of using your card? Well,
obviously, I mean, recently I went to Disney Paris, and that again, like, you know, because when I got the card, I never thought I'd actually be going to Disney Paris, but I saw that it was one of the proofs of identification and disability that were accepted. But I never thought I'd be going to Disneyland Paris when I got the card. And then when I got told that my fiance's mum had booked us a trip to go to Disneyland, immediately I was like, oh, well, I've got that card, and that means that then I can get the priority card for the park. And I was curious about how easy that process would be, because sometimes, you know, it's not always so straightforward to use these types of cards, and I thought there'd be, like, you know, maybe long questionnaires, and you know what it's like a lot of the time when you fill out anything, there's always like so many questions. And as I said, admin and me, so when I thought I had to do loads of admin for it, I was like, oh no, I can't do that. So I thought I'll take a sneak peek and see, and I clicked on the Disney Paris, and I think it was literally like, do you have one of these forms of thing? Clicked it, disability ID, and it literally was just like number, and then it was just like send.
That's it.
And then I was like, is that it? Is that done? And I was like, oh, it's done. And I was like, oh my god, that's so good, that's so easy and straightforward. How great is that? I felt so relieved.
Kudos to Disney. And then all you do is show it when you arrive as a cross-check, and that's it,
Well, here's another thing as well. So when I got there and I got to the concierge, even though I had on my phone the thing that said that it had gone through, they couldn't actually find it. So then I was panicking, so I was like, oh, am I not going to get it? And the guy was just like to me, don't worry about it. He's like, he just said, have you got it on you? And I showed him it again. And And then he just did it for me anyway. So I was like, well, that's just fab. So, you know, even if you don't do it in advance, and I know like people like me, you know, who are neurodiverse might forget or just, you know, not do it. At least, like, you know, if you don't, when you go there, they will be able to do that for you. And it's just like it takes like such a weight off, because obviously going around a massive park like that, for me, the main thing on my mind is, where's the toilet? Where's the toilet? Where's the toilet? And it can be really hard to know where they are, and you know, it's just like, it just takes that stress knowing that you're going to be able to go to the toilet if you need to. You're not going to be stood in those really long queues with like your bag filling up and feeling like you might have a leak. It's like you can actually focus on enjoying the day and not just worrying about access and all of the stuff that comes with that. And I imagine that's like the same for so many other people living with disabilities, because as I say, like, you know, life is for living. No matter if you are disabled or not, you should have the same opportunities to joy and to fun and to leisure as everybody else gets.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you shouldn't feel excluded just because, like, you know, you have a disability.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, we hope very much that that's what the scheme is helping people to do, is to get out and about and to have those nice days out and
but
just
it's
have
wild
the
because, you know,
stress taken off.
Even with like places like Disneyland that are so well known, people don't know about like these, like about the priority card at Disneyland. They don't know about these types of, you know, things that you can do for if you have a disability and you're going to places. So that's why obviously with, you know, with you guys with the social media, it's incredible, because it's like actually letting people know that this is something that's available to them, because a lot of people think like, oh, I can't go to Disneyland because I can't queue, or I've got my wheelchair, or anything like that, and they don't realise that they can. So that's what's really, I think it's really, really important, is to get the message out, like, yes, these things exist, this is, and this is how you do them step by step. Break it down, because like I say, it's not always the easiest to understand, and people just don't want to fill out loads of forms either, because that can be really intimidating.
Yeah, again, that's hopefully just by doing one application for us, it can then shortcut you to a few other things as well.
That's it.
And I think that's something we want to reduce, that burden of paperwork as well. Well, it's really great to hear.
When you live with a stoma bag or anything like that, that's like a bladder bowel condition, it can obviously be extremely personal. And a lot of the time when you are at the airport, or if you're going through security or anything like that, you don't want to necessarily say your condition or what you have, you know? So by having a card and showing the card, it literally just saves that whole process of being like, oh, I've got a bag, or I've got this or that, you know what I mean? And I think that's been really great personally for myself, and especially for people with hidden disabilities who look well, look fit, look able. If people see that they've got a card, then they understand that actually, even though they can't see that they are unwell or disabled, that they do have something that's actually, you know, not just like, that's actually, you know, verified by you guys, there's documentation for it as well. So that is just immensely helpful to anybody with a hidden disability, or anything that's like involving perhaps personal or private areas.
Yeah. Oh, that's great to hear. That is really nice to hear. We love to hear these stories.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah, we do.
No, it's like, yeah, especially because I work within London and I'm on the tube a lot too.
Yes.
And I'll be honest with you, like the tube is super busy, so you can't always get a seat. And, you know, some days you accept that that's the case and you deal with it. But then there are days where I've been like feeling really unwell, or my bag has just been absolutely going nuts. And I'm like, do you know what? I'm going to have to get my badge out, and I actually need to sit down. Like, do you know what I mean? And that's been really so helpful, because, you know, it's very visible on the front what it is, what it means, and, you know, people understand that it's like they see your photo on the card.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that is great to hear. It really is. We love hearing these things. So with the National Disability and Carers Card Scheme, we're obviously trying to raise awareness among businesses to accept the card and to kind of recognise hidden disabilities, even if you don't have a card. What are some things you wish that businesses and venues and places that you go would understand about hidden disabilities?
Ooh, that's a big question. That's probably like a that's like a 9-parter. But I just think as well, let's take a specific example. So for instance, like Wembley Arena, when they did the concerts there, they give tickets, obviously, that are just the general tickets, standing tickets, and then they also have, I think it's the, I think they're called the accessible tickets. But there's only a certain amount of those tickets, and they are for people who are, you know, in a mostly in a wheelchair or that have physical disabilities. And I just wish that they understood that they are not just people who are wheelchair users that have disabilities, and that just having a row that's got space for wheelchairs doesn't necessarily make a venue accessible. I feel like these days, like, people think that something's accessible if it's got like one disabled toilet for like miles and miles and miles, or it's got like, you know what I mean? Whereas, like, I feel like because of the nature of different disabilities and the complexities, it really isn't adequate enough, especially at a massive venue somewhere like Wembley, where you know so many people are going to go and want to enjoy music. And maybe if anyone has been following me for a while, they saw when I was talking about my experience at Taylor Swift, which was really, you know, really kind of demonstrated just like the lack of understanding about different disabilities, because, you know, most of the arrangement of the stadium for that concert was standing. For instance, there wasn't many seats. Most of it was standing. So if you wanted to go, you know, you were then forced into standing in this area by the stage. And of course, if you moved, like I needed to go to the toilet out of that, you couldn't get back to where you were standing, so you would have to then be isolated from friends, and you had to go miles to find the toilets, and then the toilets were full, and it created like a really horrible atmosphere for myself, because I ended up losing my friend. I ended up missing the concert because I went to the toilet because I needed to go, and I tried my best to hold it for as long as I could, but it was like 6 hours of standing in this one room where everyone's packed in. And it's like, you know, I feel like if they understood disabilities better and hidden ones, they would create maybe a separate section that was nearer a toilet, or they brought in other toilets that were on the lower level for people like myself to be able to stand and to feel that they could go to the toilet and not interrupt maybe others who don't want to move, who don't want to leave. Because, you know, it's just being able for everybody to enjoy music, and for everyone to be able to go to the loo, and for everybody to feel that they can get access to having a drink, because I felt personally like I couldn't move, and also I had my supplies in a backpack, my stoma supplies, and a lady kept pushing me and telling me to take my backpack off, or to get, and it's like I had medical supplies that I needed. So it was really, really uncomfortable. So, you know, this is the thing, is like, I'd say probably more like entertainment venues and restaurants, places like that, just need to understand that just having the one disabled toilet or the one place for somebody with a disability is not really enough. It's not really, you're not really accessible if that's all you've got.
So thinking about accessibility a bit more broadly maybe than
traditional. Just understanding there's different levels, there's different needs, there's different requirements. You know, and I will say another thing, obviously, like with like Disneyland Paris as well, when I stayed there, they don't have fridges in the rooms. I guess because they don't want people to bring their own food, right? But then I'm thinking, but what if you have medication that you need to keep in the fridge? How do you keep your medication? You see what I mean? But they'll say they're accessible, but they're not thinking necessarily about the different requirements. They're just thinking like, well, you can get a wheelchair into the hotel. And there is a wheelchair accessible room. But obviously we know that the scope of disabilities are very, very broad, and there's just so much more to it than just being able to, you know, use a wheelchair, because there's like conditions that require, you know, other adaptations.
Absolutely. So taking it a bit more broadly, it's something that hopefully we can all help to push for in the future. Well, thank you so much, Holly, for being on the podcast. I could have had another hour.
Oh gosh, I know.
It's
Well,
been great.
Could have chatted forever.
But thank you very much.
Oh, no worries.
Thank you so much for watching to the end of this interview. If you found this valuable, please let us know in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to our channel so you can see more amazing interviews with interesting people about disability and caregiving. And for more information about the National Disability and Carers Card Scheme, you can go to our websites disabilityid.co.uk and nationalcarerscard.org.uk. See you in the next interview.